Okay, amazing. Bryan, thank you so much for joining me. The people who are watching this weren't here or when I mentioned this part, but literally 4 weeks ago, I was looking for a grass service for a B2B office building. And I went to Google and I did not know what to search. The difference between landscaping and grass and whatever. And the amount of search results that you click on that you don't know what to click next was astounding. And when you had reached out and we had gotten connected, it obviously I love interviewing people, but when I have a problem and then I see somebody like probably like people 10, 15 years ago when Uber came around who used to have a hard time finding a car, now have one and Uber is a thing. Now when people need grass cutting services, they have GreenPal. And I'm just really excited to talk to you, Bryan, and get into the idea of like how you envision this and how it came to life and how you operate this online business. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome, David. Thanks. That's a great intro, and it's good to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bryan, I was looking through your history and kind of what led you here. And I know that you had your beginnings actually in the landscaping business with Peachtree, which you went on to sell 10, 15 years later to a larger business that took over that before you went into GreenPal. And, because my audience is so business owner driven, one question that I had when I was digging through your stuff is like, when you sold your business, what did that transition period look like between selling it and then GreenPal? Did you already have the idea? Did you take a break and breathe a little bit and then start this? Like, what did that look like? And did you learn any lessons that you would want to share with other business owners who might be looking at an acquisition or stepping away from their business?
It's a really good question, and it was one that caught me by surprise. To your point, my first company was a landscaping business. Over 15 years, I built it to like 150 people and 8 figures in revenue, and then it was acquired by a big national company. And selling that business was really really hard. It took like 2 years to get it to a point where it could be sold. And when I after I got the deal done, and then I kind of assisted with the transition, and I could really step away from it, I was exhausted. I did not want to go back in the trenches again. I did not want to start another business. And so I thought that I was going to live this lifestyle as like a capitalist. I read the book, the Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, and
Yeah, yeah,
he,
yeah,
he
yeah.
talks about this mythical figure, this mythical person, the capitalist. And I thought, man, that sounds really cool. I can just sit at my house and be in deals, and that sounds like super like interesting. And so I tried to do that, and I did it for like a year, and I got really discontent very quickly, almost depressed, to a point where I no longer had a mission. I no longer had a reason to really get out of bed in the morning and give something my all. There was no answer to the question, if it wasn't for me, then what? Didn't have kids, wasn't married, and so what I didn't understand was that my business that I ran for 15 years really was my baby. It was the reason why I needed to level up in life, why I needed to give something my all. And so, I reluctantly thought, well, okay, I guess I'll start another business.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to start another contracting business because that was like not appealing to me. But I watched the movie The Social Network, and they built Facebook in like 30 minutes. So I thought, yeah, that looks fun. I being a tech entrepreneur looks fun. You can build something and scales to millions of users. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to try that. And then I didn't have to think for about 10 minutes what the idea would be, because I kind of had in the back of my mind. I thought somebody's going to build an app that works like Uber, but for lawn care. Why can't that be me? And so I told two friends about it, and they said, I'll quit my job tomorrow and do that with you. And so we jumped off the deep end and started working on GreenPal, and now GreenPal 10 years later is a 10-year overnight success.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I always, when I look at businesses, you sometimes look at them and you're like, oh my God, look at the system. They have an app, they have a website, all of these things 10 years later, like you said, that you have. If you could break down, and I know this isn't always easy, like what were like the first couple of moves that you made when you had the idea of GreenPal? Like, was it who you called? Was it a development company? Like, what were the first steps, if you could go back 10 years ago, that you did in the beginning?
Yeah. So the first thing we did was we made the tragic mistake that a lot of new founders make when they want to start a tech company is we outsource the tech. We didn't know how to code. We didn't know how to build software. We had never coded up a website before. So we thought, well, we'll just hire somebody to do that, and then we'll do all the sales and marketing and running it, and we'll build something huge in like a year. And so we did that, and it took them 9 months and $150,000 of our money, and we released this terrible app into the marketplace that was just dead on arrival. If 100 people used it, 99 and a half of them were pissed off. And so we quickly learned that, wow, this is a lot harder than it looks. And if we're going to be in the tech business, we're going to have to learn how to execute technology.
Right.
Looking back, it's just as dumb as like thinking, oh, I have an idea for a song. I need to go get a musician
Yeah.
to write it and perform it. Like, it's just silly.
Yeah.
So we went back to the drawing board, taught ourselves how to build software. My co-founder went to a software boot camp. That it took like 3 years, but we taught ourselves how to build software and then rebuilt the whole thing.
Wow. Okay.
And the main key lesson we learned was you kind of need to hand crank these things first, and you have to do things that don't scale in order to understand what needs to be scaled. And so the next version of the app, before we even wrote a line of code, we just hand cranked everything. It was kind of like the Wizard of Oz. So if somebody signed up, we saw that, and then we would contact the lawn care providers and ask them the price. We'd get that back to the consumer. So we're like in the background making the magic happen. To the consumer, it was seamless, but we're doing everything. And we did that for probably 10,000 transactions, and then began to understand, okay, we need to build this process, this system. So we made the mistake that everybody makes, is we wanted to scale things before we knew what the hell we were doing. And then we pulled back and we started to do things that didn't scale and built out systems around that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really fascinating. One thought that comes to mind with that is 10 years later, did you find that what you thought was going to make you money didn't, and what you maybe didn't think was going to make you money did? Like, how did that revenue generator side, because obviously you have the B2B side, which is you're working with the lawn care providers, then you also have the B2C side of you're working with the consumer. Like, how did that revenue trajectory change in terms of like the percentages of where your money came from?
Yeah, the idea for how it should work and what it is weirdly did not change at all.
Okay.
I knew that from running a landscaping business, I knew that this was a problem because as my landscaping business grew to over 100 employees, we no longer did residential basic services, your basic every 2-week lawn mowing. They just weren't profitable for us. But still, 100 people a week would call my office and beg us to come out and give them a proposal and to take care of it for them. So I knew there was a consumer need, and then I knew there were smaller contractors that were hungry for that business, but didn't have any kind of online presence, didn't have any kind of marketing system, didn't have any kind of ordering system. And they were just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And so I knew that an operating system for lawn care services that kind of modulated them in a way that would tee them up for consumers to hire them, that was the idea 10, 12 years ago. And that's still what we're executing on now. How do we make this easier, faster, more convenient? How do we make it more profitable for lawn care services? How do we make it more cost effective? And build a platform where buyers and sellers can connect and do business in a way that's easier than an analog. And so that didn't change, but the value proposition did. When we first built the system, we thought, I was coming to it from a contractor standpoint. So I thought that the value proposition would be, okay, this is a competitive bidding system that is going to deliver the cheapest price for this service. And that's what consumers are going to love about it. Yeah. And as we started to execute on that value proposition, we would talk to consumers and they would say, no, I don't care about saving $5 on my lawn mowing. I just want the guy to show up on Wednesday when I hired him. And it's this weird thing, like the case of the disappearing lawn guy. They get behind, their equipment breaks down, they're disorganized, and it's not their fault. Nobody teaches us how to run a small business, and so as consumers, you have to bump up against this vendor base that has never been trained on running a business.
Yeah.
And so GreenPal is set up in a way that a layman can use it, and the workflows deliver that Uber-like experience for consumers. And it took us a long time to get that right, and we're still making it better and better. But that was one thing we got wrong in the early days, that we thought we were building something to deliver cheap prices, but as it turns out, consumers didn't really care about that. They wanted speed and reliability, and so we had to kind of reorient around building that.
Yeah, I saw that from your explainer video that you have on your website. There was at one segment of the video where it showed three prices that came in. It was like 22, 25, 28, something like that. And when you look at it, just like three boxes, the average person's probably going to click the $22 one. But then your video kept going, and then it showed 4.9 for the expensive one, 4.2 for the cheap one, 4.5 for the middle one. And then it showed the computer selecting that a little bit more expensive one and making that the selection, which made a lot of sense, right? Where you have real-time third-party. I'm guessing reviews play a huge part in your business model of continuing to work with a certain vendor and also giving the consumer the like extra value add on top of that. Like, so talk to me about how does reviews play into your business and how do you leverage that? Because when I saw that video, it really painted a big picture for me, and I'm sure it does for other people as well.
Right. Yeah. So to your point, some people might want the cheapest price. Maybe it's an empty lot. Maybe it's a rental home, and you're just trying to keep the city off of your back. And so, yeah, you don't care if they show up this week or next week, and you don't care if they blow off the back patio or not, or get the weeds out of the beds. But let's give me the cheapest guy, and that's the system will surface those types of options for you. However, if you want somebody there on Thursday and you want nice, crisp, clean edges, and you don't want any grass clippings laying on the grass, well then you need to go with the provider that's reviewed a little higher and has higher ratings, who's going to be priced a little higher. And so it's our job, kind of like Uber does with Uber X, Uber Share Ride, Uber Black. It's our job to surface that liquidity around different options, so consumers can make that informed choice for what they want in a way that's just not possible if you're doing Google searches and leaving voicemails. And yeah, maybe you can go to Angie's List or Thumbtack or Home Advisor. Those are great horizontal platforms, but you're still dialing for dollars, and you're still polling these people, and you're still wrangling them. And so that's what we aim to do. That's what we set out to do. And the reviews are a huge a piece of that, because this is what other users of GreenPal have had to say about their service. But it's not just the reviews, because the platform facilitates the entire experience end to end for contractors. We're able to measure how often do they show up on time. How often do they get booked for a second, third, fourth visit? That's a key indicator of if they're any good or not.
Yeah.
If somebody's just getting booked one time and never getting booked for the rest of the season, that's an indicator that they're not really taking this business seriously. They're not doing a good job. Yeah. And so the platform will promote and surface the contractors that have solid ratings, and will demote as secondary options the ones that don't. And that's kind of part of the flywheel that makes it better and better for users on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back a little bit to the early beginnings, when I think of myself, and you think of like the feelings of like self-doubt and imposter syndrome, etc., and putting myself in the shoes of you, of going from running a very successful lawn care business to now going into this tech world, it feels like a real big change in direction to me, right? And I can imagine if I was in that place, I would have a lot of feelings of like self-doubt, imposter syndrome. You don't know technology. Like, how did you push through that? First of all, did you deal with that? And then secondly is like, how did you keep going even after you lost 150K on the bad company? Like, how did you keep taking that steps moving forward and not just say, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm done?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So everybody's going to feel that. And I think you should always be feeling some level of imposter syndrome. Because if you're not, that means you're not pushing the envelope far enough. You're not pushing yourself enough, you should always feel like you're a little ahead of your skis. And
Mm,
so that was the case for me running a blue collar landscaping business. I had 4 mechanics that worked for me full time, and all they did was fix lawnmowers, sharpen lawnmower blades,
yeah.
change transmissions in trucks. This is about as blue collar as it got. And when I sold the business and wanted to become a tech CEO, who am I to give myself that title? But at the end of the day, A, nobody cares, and B, you don't need a title to do this.
Okay.
You can become what it is you have to become to start a business and start a tech company. And so, yeah, I felt imposter syndrome then, and I still feel it now. We have 300,000 people using this thing
Wow.
at any given week, and to get lawn mowing done, and like the magnitude of that is just beyond me. We want to get it to 1 million, and so I know that there's certain skill sets that I don't have that I'm going to have to acquire and develop to get us to 1 million. So you should always feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. And the other thing is, it was very humbling to go from running an 8-figure company to now this little rinky-dink website that operated only in Nashville, Tennessee, begging people to try to use it for a $27 lawn mowing. It was very
That'll humble
humbling.
you for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, and it was good for me. It was what I needed at the time because I didn't know what I didn't know, and it was really a good thing for me, and it helped foster that virtue of humility. And so running a business is one of the best things you can do with your life because it fosters all kinds of virtues like humility, and starting a business from scratch will definitely make you humble.
Yeah, I love that you said that you suffered with self doubt and you still have it now. Because I don't know about you, but like when I hear other people in business that are successful say things like that, it helps me take my self doubt and say, this is normal, all good. I'm going to keep going, just like everybody else does, and I'm just going to put this over here. You know what I mean? But it's not. This isn't a unique feeling to me. Where sometimes when you have negative feelings, it feels like everybody else is winning, everybody else has a great mindset except for me. But it's not the case at all whatsoever. And I just think that hearing that from other people like you is, for me, it's inspiring because it helps, it helps you see that it's a normal thing and you keep moving. Um, on the idea of lessons like that, you had mentioned that in the early stages, you learned that outsourcing tech probably isn't a good idea. And you obviously turned it around big time by just learning and bringing it in house. Are there any other expensive mistakes that you made along the journey that line up? And the reason I ask is because I feel like my best lessons are learned from, hearing from people like you of like, hey, I tried this, that didn't work. You can learn millions of dollars of education by just hearing somebody's journey. Is there anything that stands out to you that if you could go back, you wouldn't have done?
Yeah, it lots of mistakes, and that's okay. It's okay to make a mistake or many mistakes. It's just not okay to make the same ones over and over again.
Hmm.
And so you screw up, you learn from it, and then you adapt and move on, and you become this like never ending problem solving machine. And it's like you want to think, well, okay, if I solve these 3 things that are wrong with the business and hire this key person, then I'll be good for a while. And it's not how it is.
Yeah.
That just means
Great point. Yeah.
you get to solve another set of problems is all that
Yeah.
means. And so some big mistakes that we made in the early days. If you're not doing, there's really only 2 things you need to be doing in the early days. And when I say early days, probably until you get to your first $100,000 a year in revenue, maybe even 250 or 300,000 in revenue. If you're not working on the product or service and then getting people to use that product or service,
Yep.
if you're not doing either of those 2 things, you're probably wasting your time. And the reality is nobody wants to do the second one, which is getting people to use it, because it sucks. It's like you gotta maybe pass out flyers. We did that. You gotta cold call people. We did that. You gotta like stop into somebody's office unannounced and like try to pitch them on your product. It really sucks. And so everybody wants to do everything but that. And we were guilty of that. We were building the website, and we spent like a month on the color scheme. And
I heard on one of your videos on another podcast, you spent a month on that guy, your persona, your avatar. I heard you say that somewhere. Yeah.
I read a blog post somewhere about the founders of MailChimp, and a great company. And they were talking about the inspiration for the chimp, and where the inspiration came from and how they designed it. And they showed some early mock-ups of the chimp, and it's a beautifully designed product. And the chimp is beautifully designed. And I read that, I took away, we need a brand mascot. That's what we need. Then we'll be successful like MailChimp. And so we designed Gary the GreenPal, which is this kind of figure that embodies the hardworking lawn care pros that depend on our platform to make a living.
Yeah.
We spent probably 2 or 3 months designing Gary. And should he have a hat? Should he not have a hat? Should he have overalls, name tag? What color should his boots be? We had 10 customers, maybe 50. And so we shouldn't have been wasting any time on any of that until like levels 4, 5, and 6. And we should have been focusing on, okay, why do we only have 50 customers? We need 5,000. Yeah. And what is it about the 50 people that are using it that we're doing is pissing them off? And what do they wish we would do that we're not doing? And let's just focus everything on that and not worry about any of this other stuff that doesn't matter. So that's, if you can remind yourself of that, I'm either building the product or service, or I'm getting people to use this product or service. And ideally, as a founding team, you have a hacker and a hustler. And so the hacker is working on the product or service, the hustler is getting people to use it. And as you got your Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. And so, don't make that mistake.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good one of working on the product and working on the marketing. And we all have to be reminded of that sometimes, right? Because you get into one or the other, or you're doing neither. And that's where really things start to flatline. With that in mind of the getting customers, over the past 10 years, are there any tactics, strategies, platforms, whatever, 2 or 3, like what are some of the best ways that you've gotten customers?
I think, so when we were building GreenPal, we launched the second version and we're like, we need some customers. And we had no way to get customers other than passing out flyers. And so that's what we did. We passed out like 100,000 flyers around Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
And so that's what we had to do at that level of the game to get 500 people to use the app, because we needed like that liquidity. We needed people bumping up against what we were building so we could get validation on what our assumptions were and where we were right and where we were wrong. And so that was what was required at that level of the game. And that's okay. You can do that as a new founder. You can cold call, you can do flyers, you can cold email, you can cold LinkedIn until your fingers bleed. And that's what it's going to take to get your first 100, 200 people. And then as you do that, then you begin to understand, okay, this is how I could reach this audience at scale. And you don't really know that until you start getting the reps in and hand cranking the first early adopting customers. And so that's what we did. And we started to understand that talking to people, they would always tell us, well, normally I'll just find a lawn care service on Google and I'll just type lawn mowing service nearby me. And we thought, well, we just need to do that. We need to be in the options of things that people can consider. And so we started really looking at that, and we came to find out that's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's like, however hard building this damn platform was, SEO is going to be 10 times harder, and content marketing is 10 times harder, and it's a slow grind. But we really just tried to eat the elephant one piece at a time and stay in one city, Nashville. We spent 3 years just in Nashville.
Wow.
And now we're nationwide, in every major city. But we spent 3 years in Nashville to figure out how can we develop a content marketing strategy that works. And we finally hit on, well, we're just going to develop content around these lawn care services that are paying to use the platform, and hopefully that'll show up in Google. And it took a long time, but it began to work. And before you knew it, we had 100 people signing up a day. And that was a big deal for us, because we didn't know who any of these people were. Right. And how were they finding us? They were finding us from our content.
Yeah. Did you?
So we bet everything. We bet everything on content marketing.
Okay. Did you guys do anything paid, or did you go all in on organic side?
So we tested every channel that existed at the time. And so everything from Facebook ads, Google ads, Pinterest ads, Instagram ads, print. We tried a billboard. We did everything, and we just it was comically awful as to what the economics were around those channels. It's like we can't afford to pay $300 or more to acquire a consumer to sign up for the platform, because we don't take but a very small portion of the transaction that the company pays us. The customers actually are lawn care company, and the lawn care companies pay to use the platform to market their business, get connected with consumers, and quickly and easily schedule and get paid. And so we didn't have any problem acquiring them because they were beating our door down. The bottleneck was, how do we get awareness to the consumer side, and we just, the economics just did not make any sense on any paid channel. So, and that's usually the case for most startups. I mean, I read once somewhere that 80% of all venture capital dollars go back into two buckets, go back into Facebook and Google. And you've seen for the last decade a lot of these venture-backed companies, when the venture funding ceased to roll in, the economics of the business of buying a bunch of Instagram ads to sell a purple mattress didn't work. It worked for a little bit to put some numbers on the board, but it wouldn't work for the long haul. And so I think you have to innovate, not just on product, but you have to innovate on some sort of way to connect that product with people who need it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of patience comes into that play that you just described, because it can feel like you're posting, whether it's long form articles or blogs or resources or checklists, whatever it is that you guys did. And I saw on your website all the content you have there. I'm sure it feels like you're taking a lot of time to create it, a lot of money to get this thing posted with quality, and then it might take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to even see any
or longer.
Labor, but you have that patience to trust the process, and like you said earlier in the call, innovate, fix problems. I'm sure not everything worked the way you thought it would, but just kept putting one foot in front of the other. That's commendable, and it just goes to show that patience can really pay off in marketing. When it comes to that content play.
Yes, but it's important not to confuse patience with procrastination. And so I think what trips up a lot of founders is they listen to the advice of, you got to be patient. It takes time. And that is true. But they then don't do anything for a year. And it's like, no, nothing's going to happen if you just like sitting around and you're worried about your brand mascot, and you're designing your brand mascot. That's not going to move the needle. Right. And so you don't want to confuse patience with procrastination. And you really almost don't even need to worry about what your goals are. You just need to focus all your time on what the routines and the habits and the processes are for getting yourself closer to it. And so with content marketing, there's some pretty measurable inputs. It's, what is the pipeline of articles we need to be writing about? Well, where are they at in terms of, outline and writing and design and publish? Yeah. Okay, now how did they do? And it's just pretty simple to focus on those inputs, and that's where you need to spend all of your time is on the inputs and the habits, and not the goals.
Yeah. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. The difference between procrastination and patience that's huge. I think that's so valuable in and of itself. Just that. Bryan, I really appreciate your time. There's one more selfish question that I had that I'm going to ask here to finish up, if that's okay. Obviously I'm younger. I'm in my late 20s. 20, just recently turned 28. And I always find it fascinating being able to talk to people who are later on in their entrepreneurial business journey, sold a business, all of that. Is there anything that stands out that you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self when you were there, and things that you wish you could have, if you could go back there and just give a couple of wise words, is there anything that you would say?
Yeah. So I think there's like a myth that's dispelled onto the youth of America. And it's like, oh, your 20s are for finding yourself and don't worry about it. And Colonel Sanders was 55 or 75 when he invented KFC. And Sam Walton was 33 when he founded Walmart. Sam Walton was running a corner store from the age of like 18. And it wasn't called Walmart. It was called something else. And they perfected the Walmart system and started to blow it up at 32. And so it's like this advice of you have time and it's okay is horrible advice. Like you have to get on first base in your 20s and early 30s because
Yeah.
this game sucks when you
Yeah.
get older.
Yeah.
When you get older and you have kids and you're married, it's going to be really really hard to start from zero and to
Yeah.
go from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And so you need to live on rice and beans in your 20s and work 6 7 days a week like somebody's trying to steal it from you and get on first base. And what I mean by that is get to a point where your business is doing well enough, or you get a little small exit under your belt, or you have enough income where you're not stressed about money anymore, and then you
Yeah.
can swing for the fences. And yeah, no, it goes by quick. You know, I'm 44, and you'll be 44 before you know it. It goes by really quick, and 5 or 10 years can fly by in starting a business. So don't confuse procrastination with patience. And your 20s and really 30s is your one chance in life, I think, to get on first base and build that foundation.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, Brian. Thank you for that. And there's so many in the world of social media and YouTube and all the content. There's so many conflicting viewpoints on things, and being able to hear from somebody who's been there, done that. Here I am now. Here's some things I wish it goes a long way in hearing it from the source. So thank you for that. It's much appreciated as always. Brian, I really appreciate your time, and I love to share with the listeners the best ways to find you. Obviously, we have greenpal.com, which is the go-to source for finding lawn care in your area. But is there any other sources that people can go and obviously learn about GreenPal, but also just learn about Brian and what you're up to and the wisdom that you share?
Yeah, sure. Well, let me say thanks for having me on, David. This was a lot of fun. It was a great conversation. And you asked really, really good questions. So I thank you for that. So anybody wants to check out GreenPal, greenpal.com, or download GreenPal in the App Store or Play Store. Anybody want to hit me up, find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Bryan Clayton LinkedIn and just hit me up there.
Amazing. Well, Brian, thank you so much. So appreciate it. We'll have to do this again at some point because I could go down another list of 25, 30 questions that I could ask.
Will
But I
do.
will respect your time for today, and thank you so much.
Thanks, David.